Hey guys, welcome to week 9. I hope you had a good long weekend. Um, it was beautiful out, and it still is. So, yeah, we'll just get right into it. I don't really have any more information from the school for you. Um, the I know the school's going to post out a few different things about kind of what they want for textbook return and things like that. But for now, I don't have anything new. So, um, just for this week, we're going over chapter 12, which is all about economic equality. So I want you to watch it's a really cool video called Wealth Inequality in America. And you'll have to watch the video in order to complete the assignment this week. And we will have a Teams meeting on Wednesday at 1. And the assignment that I want you to complete is just called Exploring Economic Equality. So it's going to go over some source analysis with some political cartoons, and then some information that you would have learned this week, provided you did the work. So I'll go through the PowerPoint. So exploring economic equality. So these are some of the major key terms that you need to know: command economy, economic equality, free market, mixed economy, and social safety net. These are all terms that I've used in class before, but just make sure you understand them. So economic equality, it can have a variety of different meanings. Like, does this mean we should all get paid the exact same? Does it mean that we should be more equal, that there's a smaller wage gap? And how can governments really achieve this especially in a capitalist society? Because it's really, it's a very difficult thing to get. So egalitarianism essentially means to be equal. And so if you're looking at having an egalitarian society, the idea is that you have like a set base annual income so that people can get basic needs. So food, rent, transportation, healthcare, things like that. And the whole idea is that everybody kind of has a leg up and everybody has the opportunity to get ahead. Now, equal opportunity is different than that, because equality of opportunity is the idea that everybody should have the same chance, kind of regardless of where you come from in society. So whether you were born male or female, or if you're born poor or rich, that there should be a minimum wage. There shouldn't be discrimination in hiring workers based on your ethnicity or your gender or your sexual orientation or anything like that. That's or equality of opportunity, which isn't something that always happens in today's world. Equitable distribution of income. This is the idea that you should earn equal wages for work of similar value. So like teachers, for example, are paid based on a pay grid. And so when you're a beginning teacher, everybody gets paid the same amount. And then you like slowly kind of get up the pay grid until it's like 10 years or something like that. And then once you've hit 10 years, you've like maxed out on the base pay grid. Now, if you like become an admin, or if so an assistant principal or a principal or something like that, then you do make more money. If you have a second degree, you also make more money. So like right now I only have 1 degree, and so I get paid like the base set amount. When I finish my master's degree, I'll get paid a little more. And then if I ever decide to become an assistant principal or a principal, then I would get paid more, and you kind of go up higher on the grid. And so that's the idea that like no matter what, regardless of gender or ethnicity or something, teachers get paid the same. And so that's the idea of like distribution of income. Now, the other thing that comes along with that is that if you is taxation. Okay, so if you get paid a larger income, so let's say you're making 200,000 plus a year, should you pay higher taxes than those with lower income? So like look at this chart, for example. So this is progressive taxation. Okay, so if you make over $200,000 a year, you get taxed 33%. 140,000, 200,000, you get 29%, and 26 and 20.5, things like that. And so that's the idea that it kind of equalizes people out, because 33% seems like a lot of money, but when you're making $200,000, that's still more than the people who are only making $45,000 a year. And so you have to keep that in mind, right? And so like the whole idea is so that everybody kind of has more of an equal footing, and it kind of balances out. So the way that we kind of look at promoting this is how equal should the government try to make everybody? Should there be as much of a gap between the rich and the poor? Should we reward people? Should we still tax the rich just as much? Things like that. Is it just because rich people work harder and the poor people are lazy? And we know that's not true, right? And so this is a chart on income inequality. And so Denmark, Sweden, the Netherlands, Austria they have the highest grades, and so they have the lowest income inequality, whereas the UK, Italy, and the US have lower grades. Now Canada is only ranked 10th, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 10th. And so that's not like super considering the amount of taxes that we have available in the country, or that we pay out in the country. And so these countries, Denmark, Sweden, we've talked about them in class before, that they're very like socialist countries, and they kind of provide a lot for their citizens, but they also pay a very high amount of taxes, like up to like 50% in some cases, right? And so like that is a lot of taxes, but at the same time, it also basically protects them from the time they're born, essentially, to the time they die. And so like it provides childcare, and it provides welfare and healthcare and all of these different things. Okay. Now you've seen this chart before, and we've talked about the spectrum a lot. And so like those countries, Denmark and Sweden, like they would be over here in democratic socialism. Now, the United States is further over here in democratic capitalism. Canada's not like as far as people think over to democratic socialism. We're actually kind of closer on the line here. We do have like we have political freedom, and we do have lots of economic freedom, but at the same time, the government does like they do have certain policies in place to protect people, and that like healthcare and things like that. And that's why the government can do things like providing CERB and stuff like that during the pandemic. Okay. And you've also seen this spectrum before, and I really hope you remember this, although I know we haven't seen it as much because we haven't been in class as much. But these terms, command economy, mixed economy, free market economy, those are all things that I want you to make sure that you kind of understand as you go through this chapter, because you're looking at the degree of government involvement. And so in a collectivist economy, there is a very high amount of government involvement, and that's communism, shifting towards socialism, but the government is involved a lot. They control the means of production and things like that. Individualism or free market economy, capitalism, it's very low government involvement. Now, remember, the United States is not super far over here. The United States is actually probably closer to here. Canada is closer to here in the middle. Okay. So what is a command economy? It's communism. The government controls everything. The political party commands everything in the economy, and it's called essentially pan economy because everything comes from one central place. So command economy, communism. That'll hopefully help you remember that. Okay. So what will be produced? The government decides what is best for the whole nation, not just any individual. How are the goods going to be produced? Well, the government owns all the factories and farms. They own everything. And so then the government puts people where they need to be in order to produce the goods that the government feels they need. And then how is it distributed? Well, again, the government decides what you need, what you have, what the price will be, when they'll be available, things like that. And so the government makes all of those decisions. And so it really doesn't allow for like supply and demand and like that invisible hand kind of guiding the market. So Cuba and Castro, this is in your textbook, but Fidel Castro overthrew the government in 1959, and then the government took over all the factories, farms, banks, whatever, and the U.S. became very concerned over this and his relationship with the Soviet Union, and this is what leads to the Cuban Missile Crisis. And so, which you learned about in the Cold War. So a free market economy is essentially capitalism, okay? So what will be produced? Supply and demand determines that. How much do we need? How much demand is there for it? And that determines the prices. How are the goods produced? Companies decide what needs to be produced. They decide what the market needs. And then basically how it's distributed, if you can afford it, you can buy it. So like, I think I used it in class before, but if you have like the new game, which apparently there's like a PlayStation 5 coming out or something like that. So like the new game console. So they won't produce a ton at first because they want people to want to buy it. And then they like can up the price a bit and then people will buy it. And then as the demand decreases, they'll produce more, but then the price will go down usually, and there'll be more on the market and more available. But if you can afford to pay more money when it first comes out, then you do it. And that's how they decide who distributes, or how the goods are distributed. So some advantages and disadvantages. And I'm not going to go over all this because it's in your textbook. But some advantages is that wealth can be distributed more equally. The governments can ensure that there's full employment. But other problems is that they might not have a choice of career because they're focused on more regulations. Anyway, so check this out in your textbook. Affirmative action. This is something that I want you to look at. So in the 1960s, because the government realized that there had been like years of like racism and discrimination in hiring, like with gender and stuff like that as well, they were like, well, excuse me. They're like, how can we change this? And so affirmative action, basically, they hired visible minorities instead of white Americans to reverse the previous change. But then many white Americans said that this was just discrimination against them. And it's not. You can't. Like they've had like white Americans had so many years of basically like full on first dibs access to a lot of these jobs. And so the whole idea was that it was trying to kind of balance it. But then a lot of people argued, well, but you still need to pick the best person from the job. So does it matter what their, does it matter what their like race is and everything? But the whole idea was to provide more equal opportunity for people of visible minorities. Okay. And a mixed economy, which is what Canada's has. Canada looks at supply and demand. Now the government also provides essential goods. So if the government knows that like certain food is necessary, then the government will make sure that that is produced. How is it produced? Companies produce goods, but the governments might subsidize this. So for example, farmers, they usually get subsidized because farming equipment costs so much money. And so the government will provide subsidization to certain farmers to produce like beef or wheat or things like that. To try and offset the cost to kind of help those farmers out. And then how is it distributed? If you can afford it, you can buy them. But if you can't, the government helps you. And so that's where like welfare checks and things like that come into play. Okay. And then a social safety net is that the government basically provides help if you can't get out of the hole. So like if you're in debt or if you're born poor or things like that, then the government helps bring you out of that. Okay. And that's a social safety net. Okay. Now Keynes demand side and economics. Now this is what's killing me that I can't teach you this in class because we usually spend quite a bit of time on this. So basically, and I give you the pants analogy because it's the easiest analogy here. But John Maynard Keynes believed that the government should try to regulate the economy so there's no extreme highs and lows because it provide like that's what gets like the depression and then busts and when you're in a depression it's too hard for people to kind of get out of it. And so Roosevelt used his ideas to help pull the US out of the Great Depression. So in demand side economics, also called Keynesian economics, okay, the whole idea is that in a recession, so when the economy is in a downturn, okay, the government should spend money on building projects, on roads, on things like that. They spend money and they hire people to do jobs to try and lessen the depression. It also reduces taxes at that time. And so that the whole idea is that there's more money in your pockets, thus with the pants, okay? So you put more money in your pockets because you're paying less taxes and because the government is hiring more people. In a boom, the government spends less money. There's less work on roads or bridges or buildings or things like that. It also raises taxes because the whole idea is that it softens a boom. So there's not such high extremes because when there's like a really big boom and people are making a ton of money, then they tend to spend a lot of money, but then oftentimes they get into debt and then it makes the recession harder because they're already in debt. So the whole idea is that they take more money out of your pocket so that it kind of balances out. And the whole idea is to stabilize the economy so that these booms and busts aren't so massive and it doesn't impact the economy so much and then impact the country so much, okay? You will need to do this section, the economic equality for Sweden and Canada, for your assignment. So that's in your textbook in chapter 12. So make sure you look at that. This video, like I said, is really, really good. Wealth inequality in America. It's about 6 minutes long, but it really kind of shows the massive wage gap and the massive pay gap within the United States. Like it's unbelievable. We're gonna have a webinar or a Teams meeting on Wednesday, and I'm going to go over the essay that you'll be doing next week, as well as any of this stuff on Keynesian economics, because I know it's kind of a really hard thing to understand. So please make sure you come to that, okay? We have this assignment, Exploring Economic Equality. And then please make sure you've reviewed assignment 1 essay for next week. All of that is in the older pre-COVID stuff. It gives you the essay essay 1 assignment, and attend that Teams meeting on Wednesday, May 20th, because it's important that you're there so that I can explain a few things, because I can't do it in class, right? So I miss you guys, and I hope you're doing well, and please email me with any questions you have. I've talked to a few of you this weekend and things like that. And yeah, we will talk to you soon. Bye.